No more Mr. Postman Lace on Saturdays. But is that really going to fix the problem, or is it time to deliver a plan that works? Welcome, everybody. I'm Eric Bowling in for Neil Cavuto, and this is Your World. With union costs spiraling out of control, the Postal Service now cutting back on deliveries.
Mail delivery will occur Monday through Friday, and we will not deliver nor collect mail on Saturday.
After losing nearly $16 billion, the U.S. Postal Service says this move will save it $2 billion a year. But Tim Carney says he's got an even better plan that would not only save money, but keep the services flowing. What say you, Mr. Carney?
Well, I think the post office needs to be forced to compete. That whether we privatize the post office or just keep it as a government agency, but say you need to compete with private postal services, this will drive efficiencies. And now this obviously would mean something bad probably for the postal unions, but right now it's illegal to compete with the U.S. Postal Service.
Well, some would say FedEx and UPS competes with the Postal Service, and they're making a profit.
Yeah, they are making a profit, and they can compete with certain aspects of what the Postal Service does. But if they tried to deliver a letter and charge less than $2.50, that would be illegal. If they tried to drop it off, or you wanted to set up your own little postal service in some part of Manhattan and drop it off in somebody's mailbox, their own property, that would be illegal. Right. There are federal laws to protect the Postal Service from competition, and that's part of what has subsidized all these big union pension benefits that imagine that the profits from the pre-email days were going to keep on going on, or the volumes from the pre-email days were going to keep on going on forever.
I'm glad you brought up the unions. We did a little math here. I pulled the numbers. By the way, the Postal Service doesn't tell you how much they pay individual employees. They don't tell you how much in benefits they give them either. So I did the math. Took the last numbers we have, 2012. They spent on salaries and benefits $50.5 billion. We called them, found out how many employees. There are 629,000 employees. Tim, that means each employee, on average, gets $80,286 per year. Those are the current employees. Forget the ones that they're paying in pensions. Could they survive paying these kind of salaries?
Well, again, if you had kept the volume from 1985 of email, they probably could have. But it's the same problems that a lot of governments, state governments, but also some big industries ran into, such as Detroit, where they're paying these pensions as if these heydays are going to last forever. And they're imagining they're never going to get competition because they had these laws protecting them from mail competition. But then something called email comes along, and all of a sudden they have much cheaper competition, and they can't keep affording to pay the pensions. And it's always the pensions, much more than the salaries. It's the pensions and benefits that do an organization.
You know, Tim, they're going to put about $16 billion on the taxpayer. Now, the left likes to say, no, it's not the taxpayer because it's not a taxpayer. It's not on budget. But here's what happens. The Postal Service has a letter of credit with the Treasury. So they go to the Treasury and say, I need $16 billion to pay my bills this year. They give it to them, and the Postal Service gives the Treasury, us, taxpayer, an IOU. If the Postal Service defaults, who's going to be on the hook for all this money? Year after year of billions.
Well, obviously, eventually, the taxpayers are going to end up forgiving the debt. That's what's going to happen. We're going to forgive the debt, and we're never going to get that money back that we sent over to the Postal Service. And I say I'd be happy to forgive the debt if they went ahead and they said, let private companies compete. Or maybe you make the Postal Service just be like welfare. Have them only deliver to poor rural parts of the country where the private guys can't make a profit. And that way their losses would be minimized, and we would know that we're not funding some quasi-business, but we're basically funding some sort of welfare-type service.
All right, Tim Carney, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
My next guest says the Postal Service doesn't need to be privatized. She disagrees with Tim Carney. She wants Postmaster General Patrick Donahoe removed. Jeanette Dwyer is the president of the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. Jeanette, I'm going to go through a couple. Thanks for joining us, first of all, an important day.
Thank you for having me.
80. I put the numbers, pen and paper to the numbers. 80,000 per postal employee. How in the world do you expect to compete when you have 629,000 employees and you're tacking on $16 billion of loss a year? Aren't there too many letter carriers?
Absolutely not. And my union is the Rural Letter Carrier Association, National Rural Letter Carrier Association Union, and over 50% of my craft is a part-time employee that works only on Saturday or when needed. They have no benefits of any type.
Okay, all right.
Unless,
That's
they work.
All due respect, that's your union, the National Letter Carriers Union. Is 629,000 employees, I don't know, 500,000 strong. Who knows what the number is? But you can't keep adding 10 to 15 billion dollars onto debt. Keep running up these deficits year after year. Something has to change. What's the answer? Do we raise? Hold on. What's the answer? Do we raise the price of stamps, or do we renegotiate your contracts?
First off, you talk about the billion the money you just talked about. How much of that is the prepayment, which we are funding prepaid military benefits for all other agencies? We're the only government agency required to do that since 2006, as mandated by the PAEA.
All right, let's
so without that, how much of that loss would have been actual loss?
Well, I don't know, but I know for the last 3 or 4 years there have been multiple billion-dollar losses that the Postal Service has thrown over to the Treasury, which myself and most of our viewers out here are taxpayers. We're funding the Treasury, but the Postal Service is throwing losses onto us.
The Postal Service has not taken any taxpayer money.
Absolutely incorrect, ma'am. Where's the money coming from? You tell me where the money came from.
The Postal Service has no record of taking taxpayers' money.
Well, no,
we don't receive any tax funds.
Well, of course you do. You don't. It's not tax funds, but you knock on the door at the Treasury and say we need. Well, hold on. You say we need $15 billion to pay our employees. The Treasury gives them $15 billion. It's against the letter of credit with the U.S. Treasury. But the problem is, if the Postal Service can't pay its bills or goes bankrupt or defaults, we, the taxpayer, have to eat that.
Without the pre-funding last year, the Postal Service would have made money even in these economic times.
I don't know where you get your numbers. I'm looking at the numbers.
I'm not sure where you're getting yours either.
$50 billion in salaries and benefits alone almost covers the income from stamps and postage. Almost covers that. Just about does. Forget the other pensions. Forget the $12 or $13 billion per year of retiree benefits. Something has to give. You can't run a business this way. You can't run a household this way. You can't run a federal government this way, but the president seems to think it's okay to do it that way as well. Something has to give. You either have to raise revenues or cut expenses. Which is it?
Let me ask you a question. You said that UPS and FedEx, the person before me said we should be able to compete with them. We are now carrying the last mile for them. The Postal Service does that already, carrying the last mile for those two companies.
Can you explain what that means? Can you please explain what that means to our viewer? What do you mean you carry the last mile?
When we have parcels that UPS or FedEx cannot deliver, they're being dropped at post offices, and rural letter carriers and city carriers are delivering the last mile of that parcel.
Okay. So, are you against renegotiating? Are you against renegotiating your contracts to keep the U.S. Postal Service solvent?
We just received an arbitrated decision from an arbitrator on our contract in which we created new employees at a lower pay, some of them with no benefits, in a part-time capacity.
Right. Okay.
Again, over 40% of our employees, our craft, is a non-benefit employee.
Okay. This is the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. Should your counterparts, should the other letter carrier unions take your past actions as a way forward to maybe solve the solvency problems at the Postal Service? Should they renegotiate?
Sir, I can't speak for the other unions.
I'm not asking you to speak for them. Should they do it? Would that work? Would that help solve the $16 billion deficit that the USPS has?
There have been other agreements with the other unions who have done the same thing. Step to the plate. Look at a lower pay for those employees, incoming employees. The unions have done that. Okay. The unions have worked with the Postal Service to do that. Right. What we need to do is look at increasing business, not cutting and slashing, but increasing business on and have 6-day delivery. Okay. And increase our service to the American public. By the way,
ma'am, I'm going to let you go, but Quinnipiac poll had Americans voting 4-1 in favor of eliminating the Saturday first-class mail service. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.